Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the 66th edition of the IT Press Tour. And for some of you, we recognize Ross and Jamie. You both work for Quantum, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, especially you, we met you several times.
Yes.
Several times, especially, I think, in Colorado
Right.
and in other places, even in San Jose HQ.
Yes.
I remember a few years ago. And you will explain your new life now.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, thanks for spending some time with us. We're going to talk to you about our company, Helikai. Ross can talk to you all about the meaning of Helikai, but effectively what we do is we automate IT using AI agents. The genesis of the company came from when Ross and I worked at a public company together, and I, like many CEOs, said, hey, everyone has an AI mandate. We have to use AI because it's the future, it's going to help our business, we're going to automate things. And we took very smart engineers, very good people, very meaningful projects, and after about a year of work, we didn't have much to show for it. And I think that's fairly typical of most companies when they begin working in AI. So I turned around and said, just give me something. Make something simple work. Just use AI to validate an address. Calculate shipping, something simple. And what we did is we went from these very large, lofty ideas to very, very small steps. And when we did that, we started to get results. And that became the core foundation of our micro AI approach that we're going to tell you about. But Ross, why don't you tell us a little bit about Helikai and what it means, and we're pretty experienced guys, and the way we think about our company and the culture of our company and the way we do work and who we work with is important, probably more important to us than when we were 20.
Yeah, and I've known Jamie for a long time, and this is
30 years.
Over 30 years that we've been actually
at
Cisco, both startups Seagate, and very, very large companies. By the way, David Marshall, I worked for 5 years at SolarWinds, so I knew your name sounded familiar, and I'm actually from Austin too. So I had to battle the storm last night. But no, meaning of Helikai, and as we were thinking about it, especially the problems we were going to solve and solving, we liked several aspects around like the illumination of whether that's your businesses, your data, and so we went with Helios, which is Greek for the sun. So it's kind of like the Heli and Helikai, and then Kai in Hawaiian is the sea or the ocean, and that was kind of there's I guess a symbolism for sort of illuminating or lighting up the depths of your data, the depths of your business, and we think we want to do that, especially in a very responsible way, right? AI is not here just to replace people, but we think that many of the businesses and people will start to work with AI. Whether that's like an agent that they work with, or it's almost like a co-worker,
companion.
right?
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of the offerings, the things we talk about, right, we infuse that human in the loop, that human side of it, because we do believe we see a better world with AI in it, right? Not necessarily replacing people, but
I think you want to say the road to Helikai is paved with good automations.
yes. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So one of our other learnings was that Ross and I had been in high tech our whole lives, and high tech companies are filled with lots of engineers, and AI is actually different than that. What we find is our teams are not all engineers. Our teams are about 50% subject matter experts and 50% engineers. And effectively, the subject matter expert is explaining how they do their job. So for example, we do work in pathology. So we work with pathologists who explain how they look in their microscope at cells and analyze those cells. And that informs our engineers to say, how do I automate what that person does? And so we've really taken healthcare experts, legal experts, IT experts who work hand in glove with our automation engineers, and we basically fully deconstruct what someone does all day, finding the routine tasks, the mundane tasks, where errors are made, mistakes are made, and that's where we really press our automation. So it's really an interesting group of people, of both industry experts and automation experts that we've brought together. And what we do is we build micro AI. We are not trying to reconstruct the human mind. We're not trying to digest every piece of data ever printed by mankind and house it in super intelligence. We're doing the opposite. Our agents do one thing. They don't know the entire history of every book ever written. You know, we have an agent that all it can do is read a purchase order, but it reads it 100% accurately at enterprise grade accuracy. We have an agent that just validates addresses. Is this a valid shipping address? Does it have a loading dock? Can a truck pull up to it? Can a truck turn around, right? So what our agents do is tiny steps. And we can combine them into a pipeline or workflow to do more complex steps. But one of the problems with macro AI is it's not very accurate. One of the things that AI does is it hallucinates, which is good because it's creative. If you notice when you ask AI, a public AI site, a question, it'll answer it a little differently every time, which is neat. But if you're running an ERP system, you can't have it calculate taxes a little differently every time. It cannot have it send it to a different shipping address a little differently every time. You need true enterprise-grade reliability. And we achieve that by taking these gigantic models that know everything about mankind and saying, no, you're just going to know addresses and nothing else. You are going to know tax calculation, internet. Like we just turned on Australia, and we're working with Queensland Hospital and a bunch of different accounts there. And we have to calculate sales tax perfectly accurately there, and we have engines that do that. And so our agents get one outcome, and now our projects, you probably hear a lot of these AI projects kind of go on forever, and it's hard to ever get them completed. We know exactly what our agent costs, how long it takes to deliver it, because they're doing such a scoped and defined item. We're not going to a company and saying, we're going to automate all things in your company. It's like we pick very discrete tasks, and we get rapid results, and we get accurate business outcomes. To give you a sense, so far we really only work with the Fortune 100, Fortune 200. Our customers are the biggest accounts in the world, and the results we're achieving are, a lot of it wasn't even possible maybe even 6 weeks ago. But we're using agents that quickly. And the frame we work in is we don't, like a lot of tech companies, they go on sales calls. We don't. We only will sit down with someone if they're willing to take a day or so or 2 days and do a deep engagement with us. We don't charge them, but we're not going to show up and give you a sales call. We sit down and we want to understand, what are you trying to achieve with AI? Where are you? Where are you really at? What skills, capabilities, platforms, maturity do you have? What are your aspirations? And are they realistic? Because the first thing everyone wants to do in AI is, let me think of the world's most complicated damn thing that I could possibly invent, and that's what we're going to go to. And we use the MITRE maturity model, and we sit down with them and say, well, do you have an AI platform? Do you have AI governance at all? Do you care about the fact AI is biased? It is. You use a Chinese model, you use a US model, they are different, and the geopolitics are in the models. And do you have a framework for mitigating that? Do you care? And what you'll find very quickly is most companies are not that mature. And so we question why they want to start with something so complex. And what we do in the AI workshop is we find use cases that match their level of maturity, right? So we start with simple projects. And we use pre-built agents. We have a catalog of over pretty close to 200 agents now. So we pick agents right off the shelf that are built, tested, ready to go. We might train them off their data. The customer accepts them, and then we help them operate and run those agents either in the cloud or inside their business. And I'll explain our delivery models. But we basically understand what they're trying to achieve, their maturity. We give them technology right out of our catalog, so it's not custom built, it's not consulting work. We train that, we deploy it, and then we manage it.
So this is probably on the next slide, but which underlying AI agents or infrastructure are you using? Is it OpenAI? Is it your own? Is it Gemini? Is it
We
Claude?
support over 40 to 60 different models, so we don't believe in any vendor lock-in. The other thing is the models are changing every 3 to 4 weeks. So we find, for example, Gemini gives us results that are very different than OpenAI. We do a lot of work in media and entertainment where you don't use large language models. We do work in oncology, we do work with life sciences, pathology, and human tissue. We don't use any LLMs for that. They're totally different models.
Retrieval augmented generation systems as well.
Our core system is a RAG, but we use a lot of things completely outside of RAG. So one of the things, we're agnostic, which is everyone's being pitched so hard to choose a platform. Go with Google, and we sit down and say, it'd be foolish to pick any core platform because they all are very different and do fundamentally different things. And one of the things when we get into our RAG server, or what we call our secure and private RAG server, is it can run 20 or 30 models simultaneously. And you can ask it a question and say, what would OpenAI say? What would Gemma say? What would Grok say? And you can lay the results out. And when we're tuning, after a workshop, when we figure out exactly what they want to achieve, we actually test many different models to get the right result the customer wants.
Yeah, and to Jamie's point, we're really insulating them from the fads, right? And so many of our customers are like today, it's, it was all, or let's just even say a few months ago, it was all about OpenAI and the version 5. It's all about 5.1. It looks excellent, and like Google kind of flipped the script and
destroyed it.
Yeah, and of course, with
if you're doing
Gemini
media
model,
and
so it's always
entertainment,
like this,
and you went all in on OpenAI, OpenAI cannot produce a high quality a movie quality image or photograph or anything, whereas Gemini can. And like if you had gone all in on one of those platforms and you're a movie maker, you'd be on the wrong platform. And we see literally we're doing things that weren't possible 6 weeks ago. So we want to allow for our customers, as the models keep coming out, we just drop the new models onto their servers, and that's part of the support you get from us. Is we're constantly updating the models on our Sprague servers. So in the workshops, really what we're trying to do is just figure out, ultimately we're understanding what they want to achieve, what maturity level they're at, and we're stack ranking use cases. We're stack ranking them by risk. What are some things that you can do quickly on a budget where you get a reliable enterprise grade result quickly? Because success breeds success, and the opposite. If you have a big AI failure, everyone's reticent to do any more. So what we do is, let's set you up for success. Let's pick some simple use cases where we have a lot of known technology, and then you start building a staircase to more and more complex use cases as the maturity goes up. And we create a kind of a documented plan. Now our business model is pretty clear. We have a catalog of 200 plus agents. I want my customers to buy as many agents from me as possible. So we sell them a few, they have a good result, then they buy more, And they start saying, okay, so for example, we engaged with one of the world's largest retailers, and they started with us creating their photography. You can imagine if you have furniture, nobody brings in, they have 1 million SKUs. So bringing in 1 million pieces of furniture to photograph is totally impractical. So what they do is they create a 3D rendering of their sofa, and then they have artists put all the hundreds of different fabrics on it. No one shoots photographs of it. It's generated in Photoshop. Then it's put in a background, it's put in a living room. That living room doesn't exist. It's created by artists. And the artists take hundreds of hours to do this for millions of pieces of furniture at millions of dollars of expense. And we started working with them and saying, we'll build the 3D renditions, we'll place a rendition in a vignette, then we'll determine the angle of the sun, and we'll create the shadows, and then we'll lay down all your leathers and fabrics, and allow you to zoom 8, 9 times into that couch to look at the texture of the fabric. And we did that in AI, and we started with that. And then the CEO came to us and said, I want to talk to my data. I want to ask it, what are my best-selling couches? Why don't these rugs sell in Europe when they're selling so well? And I want to talk to my data warehouse because I have meetings and we need this data, and I ask IT, and a week later I get a report, but a week later we've moved off to the next thing. And so we built a semantic interface into their data. So now the CEO and the management team can talk to their data warehouse, ask it any kind of semantic question. We generate the SQL, go do the underpinning queries, and then can give them the results in whatever they'd like. Put it in a table, put it in a PDF, put it in a PowerPoint slide for me. And our AI generates that. And now they're giving us multiple more projects. And so we might start in a media and entertainment use case, but move into different use cases. And so a lot of people think our catalog is wide, but actually we have legal use cases, but most our enterprises go, well, we have contracts. We want to generate contracts, read contracts. And so we move between media, core enterprise, legal use cases from our catalog. So we like to have the workshop where we build a long-term multi-year plan so that they'll be adopting more of our agents. And the more agents they adopt, the more they monetize the platform.
How often are you creating new agents?
Multiple per week, sometimes. Now we have oncology agents that might take an engineer 6-9 months to, we do pediatric radiology, so we can determine if growth plates are closed, the maturity of a bone, can the bone be drilled into, or is a child too young to do that? That is a very complex agent to build. We have other agents that might read a PDF file. One of the things we look for are wet signatures, right? Did someone sign the contract? Did they sign the purchase order? That one someone builds in a couple days. So there's lots of different, and you'll see there's foundational building block agents and then deep industry, like we do a lot of insurance work where we do insurance claims processing. That's very, very deep agents, so they variety. And usually we work in this maturity model. And this is a known model, it's a pretty popular model, everyone uses it, but it's a nice way to sit with a customer and say, I know you want to do this really adventurous thing, but you're here, right? You don't have a platform, you don't really have any resources, your organization's kind of new to this, your data isn't really organized for AI, so gee, why don't we start here and walk you up this? And everyone's like, oh, I want to be here. And it's like, okay, well, we'll give you a set of agents from simple ones, like, so when we deal with life sciences, the first thing we look at is saying, well, when we look at your image, is it in focus? Like, let's not look for cancer. Let's just look at the slide that you've been given of maybe it's a piece of a liver tissue. What are the cells in focus? Well, let's start there. Let's just look to say, do we have a high quality image? Then we move, okay, we do have a high quality image. Okay, let's count the cells. How many cells are in it? And we'll build up to how thick is the cell wall? What kind of cells are they? And then we get to, are they cancer cells? But if you don't, so we start these pipelines and build the maturity as we work with the customer. So yes, we do have a RAG server. It runs many different models. What makes our RAG server quite unique is it is built for the enterprise. It is not built for a public consumer environment. So first thing it has is deep access control. Who can run what agents? Who's allowed to run what agents? When they log on, are we able to use the corporate enterprise's security system? Do we have full traceability? What is every decision the agent made? What is every human interaction? Every single thing that happens on that server is logged, which you don't get in these public services, because this is designed for large public companies that are highly regulated to use advanced AI. We mitigate hallucination. We cannot be hallucinating when we're on the quote to cash pipeline. We're usually the first place we go is into quote to cash ERP pipelines. We have a lot of technology around hallucination, and that's why we limit our systems and limit their data.
I want to say something on that too. It's just because I feel like we really dance with AI, and Jamie and I have a lot of these discussions where there's times where you want it to be creative, right? In many cases, hallucination is a good thing because when you're writing a paper, you want it to be creative, right? And you can kind of use that interchangeably. But at the same time, it can also hallucinate when you don't want it to, right? And I think it's finding the patterns of, where do we actually deploy AI-based patterns technology? Because there's many times where we actually take a lot of just plain automation and other types of things that have existed for a long time, but it's kind of how we fuse them together. And I would say it's probably where a lot of our expertise is, how do we dance, right? It's a little bit of a tango
what's interesting,
between both sides.
When Ross built RAG, our Sprague platform, it has a vector database, right? Which is how it can understand things like if you're looking for responsibility, it knows that indemnification is a form of responsibility, right? That's what a vector database does. Now, Ross also put a relational database and standard programming tools, because sometimes when we're doing a complex workflow, there are steps in it where we don't want to use AI. If I have to log into an Oracle database and say, what is the tax rate in Texas, or what is the tax rate in California, I don't want AI to do that. I don't need AI to be creative. I don't need any artificial intelligence. That's just classic old-fashioned query a piece of data. So we have all of the deterministic technologies in the platform and non-deterministic. And our workflows weave in and out of them to get an enterprise-grade result. If you go AI tail to tip, if you use AI for every single thing, it is very hard to get enterprise-grade 99.9 accuracy results. And so a little bit more about RAG, our Sprague technology. One, it ingests content, millions of files. It can ingest, so for example, if I'm training how to write a proposal, I'll ingest a company's 20 years of proposals. I'll let them rank their proposals they've written by their favorite proposals, the ones they hate. Right? And then we start to learn, so we allow them to rank tag their data. We like this data, we don't like this data. And then it starts to learn their voice. It starts to learn their catchphrases. It also starts to learn in a proposal how they quote financially. What do they charge for things? What do they give away for free? Where do they discount? Then, so event-based, as they add more proposals to a directory, we absorb them. Then we start to vectorize the content, and then you can start writing prompts. Generate me a new proposal for this customer, apply this discount. Now our prompts can be 10, 20 pages long. Build me a proposal with this kind of budgeting. It is a life sciences customer. I want a graph about this. I want a photo about that. I want you to describe, write this in the executive summary. You can write these massive prompts. And then it takes your data that's totally proprietary to you. The other thing is our RAG server is totally private. The data is never put on the internet, never shared with the internet, fully locked down. You can put this in a black data center with zero internet access, and we'll have the whole 120 billion model of OpenAI. We'll have Grok, we'll have Anthropic, Grok. We'll have all those models on a single server. So people think AI is gigantic, it isn't. The only thing that's gigantic is the training models, and we do those as well for more advanced customers, but for this, it's very discrete.
So where you are on-premise, actually, I guess the server must be quite big, no? With a lot of memories and... No?
No. Often you don't even need a GPU. So this fallacy of a massive amount of hardware that is for people who are training these global, enormous models. For an average enterprise that has 5,000 contracts and you're learning to write a contract, or you process 60,000 invoices a year, you need a $22,000 server, and that'll run all of OpenAI, and you can put a low-end $7,000 GPU and you're fine. And you don't need to go pay anyone per token or these outrageous bills. None of that's needed.
Well, I guess it's also because you're not boiling the ocean.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm not training on every book ever written in the library of mankind. Even though we have that model. So our models, you can ask it any question you can ask OpenAI, and you'll get every single answer. Every piece of data in OpenAI sits in a little library that you can put on your laptop. So Ross on his laptop is running the entirety of OpenAI in that laptop. Now the training model takes billions of dollars to train it. Once trained, it's actually a very small item.
Yes, but actually I do it on my Mac with Olama or this kind of thing. So I have a 64 gigabyte of memory, and I can use 30 billion parameters. This is what I can do. So 30 millions, I don't know if it's enough to do what I try, so it doesn't really work. I'm missing some agents, but I don't know if it's enough really, or if.
Well, I think Ross is smaller than that.
It certainly gets to the level of you're probably the entry level, right? I mean, of course, we test with even models that are smaller than that, but a lot of the time you're testing something. But as we roll to staging production, you're going to want to use a bigger model, right? Yeah. And by the way, bigger is not necessarily better, right? I mean,
More
nowadays they have
hallucination.
Because when you have several models.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
When you have your agent, so any agent use a different model, right? So you have to put all the models at the same time in memory. So that's why you need something with a lot of memories.
Sure, yeah. And again, it just depends on the customer, right? And some of them, I mean, they don't necessarily run like 50 or anything like that, right? They're probably just
3 models, 2 models.
2 at the most, right? Yeah. And sometimes even 1's fine, but it's just really kind of a customer preference. But yeah.
But
Yeah, I had one question.
Yeah.
Real quick. I know you talked about like rank tagging, and we're talking about a limited scope of. We're not boiling the ocean. We're looking at data that the client has within their own organization. We talked about hallucinations. We know that hallucinations also come from dirty data, bad data, garbage data. How do
Or
you?
conflicting data.
Yeah. What do you do? I'm assuming that's part of the process as you're doing it, right? How do you determine what's bad data and good
Right.
data in
So
order to
we'll
give the
curate.
exact answer?
Yeah, so one of the things we try and understand is how curated is the data. The data doesn't need to be on extremely fast underpinning storage systems. Good enough storage is good enough for AI in almost all cases. But the data has to be organized. So for example, if we're looking at contracts, we say, please, we'd like to learn off of contracts that are still relevant, that the contract law is still good law, that these are what you think are high quality examples. So we do need business people to help us curate. So for example, if we're looking for, these are blood samples that have no cancer, these are blood samples with cancer, we ask those samples to be very clear, the DICOM imagery to be in focus, and they help organize and curate that content, or will go do it for them, or help them do that. But yes, if you have data, if you have 2 contracts that are more or less diametrically opposed, and you both say they're good, it gets confused. It's like, this one is saying it's allowed, this one's saying it's not allowed. It'll then give you confusing results. So we do parse through the data, and the Sprague server will also tell us, we can use prompt engineering to say, is our data cleanly patterned, or is the data dirty and confused and conflicting? So we actually use our prompt engineering as we start to learn off the data to see how good the set is.
That's a great question. I mean, one other thing that we do is actually we've worked with some partners. We can't probably, I don't know if we want to announce it quite yet, but we basically around data cleaning and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're working with some predominantly like DBA type, ETL type expertise where they've just been all about data cleansing and stuff, right? And we're a natural kind of complement to some of these businesses. So there's one in particular that we're partnering with on, some data cleansing, if you will, in the enterprise. But
yeah. And once you have optimized that LLM with the local data, are you using that LLM for several customers, or is it customer specific?
It's customer specific. So our customers, what we found is the main reasons they're not using AI is they're obsessed about security. Yeah. The idea that OpenAI, Microsoft, and others is taking their data and learning from it is very upsetting to our customers. So most of them want their RAG system to be entirely private, not in a multi-tenant model, completely private to them, because they believe they're building their own intellectual property off of their data, and they do not want that shared with us or anyone else, and they do want this private.
But that means that the learning process will continue. You can never stop with updating your LLM. You should, on a daily basis, you should update it with the new information.
All the time.
So there's there's every day a new latest model.
It has to be, there's a difference between model building and fine tuning. Okay. So we keep a consistent model, but we are fine tuning off their data. And that's what this event-based intelligent ingest, every day they drop files, it's picking up those files and learning in real time. It's learning all the time off your data. And that's part of what you pay us for in our support, in that we keep your data's evolving all the time. If you're using photography, the cameras are getting better and better. If you're doing MRI, CAT scan, X-rays, as you get new equipment, the fidelity of an X-ray improves, the quality of a CAT scan improves, and the data's changing. And that's what you get in our support contracts, is we make sure that we're staying, the results you're getting continue to be as accurate even though the data is evolving.
But we will switch, in some cases, if better models come out, and of course we're testing them in conjunction with the customers, data, and not always necessarily our own tests, but just making sure that their use cases and things work, but we can switch it out.
But if OpenAI releases a new model,
yes,
and you have to rebuild the whole
No.
You can use that model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just update the model.
Yeah.
We just swap it in. So these are these are like examples of models we plug in, but effectively at a kind of a high level of this, this is where we plug into the IT environment through security. We have an orchestration engine for very complex pipelining. We have the ability to ingest data, parse it, chunk it, embed it. And then we have traditional database, next generation database. So think of this as deterministic, non-deterministic. All your enterprise, role-based access control, search, audit, logging, the things you'd expect. And then here is where we plug in our robots, Helibots, AI agents. But we can go and plug in, starting with 1 or 2, and they can just plug more and more agents. They can buy third-party agents from other people. They can write their own. And we have an agentic development platform. Most of our customers generate robots through prompts. So you actually talk to our engine, tell it, develop me an agent written in Python that does this, talks to this database in these ways, and it generates the source code for this off of our core engine. So the engine actually generates itself.
You do not support DeepSeek? Yeah.
We leave it off slides, Quen also, and some of that is...
We use Quen a bit.
Well, we use it for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've used it.
I wouldn't use it for hiring.
I've just found that in U.S. businesses, it can be a touchy subject. I mean, right? Of course. Oh, of course, yeah. And that's part of the, when Jamie mentioned the MITRE framework and stuff, but, as we start talking to customers, there are things like bias, and, sometimes it is big for a company because, especially multinational ones, but, they want to know, for instance, is this model trained with the basis of socialism or other types of things, right? And again, U.S. we're probably a little bit more paranoid maybe with some of that, but in any case, you asked the right question, right? So, I mean, we can support it. We
Technically,
tend to-
yes. Politically,
Yeah.
whatever.
But
you know,
yeah. And
I
by
mean,
the way,
we don't.
that's just to say, but we've also found some of the best results with Qwen 3, right? I mean, like some of the,
a good model.
image wise, LLM wise, I mean, just the language processing is amazing.
The best results are with Queen.
Right?
Correct.
Right. So,
Correct.
right. But we're
I just wouldn't
sensitive
use
to
it for
that.
hiring.
Yeah. And as I said, we're sensitive and we do talk to customers about it, like, hey, you have the choice, but and by the way, it's a lockdown it's your own version, so it's not like you're running and just keep getting trained on, right? So they know they can control it, but some are sometimes, well, just choose OpenAI or
One of the things we haven't talked about a lot is KaiFlow, which is our human in the loop. So we do extremely rich messaging, audit trailing, so that you can see every single decision and step the AI makes. The reason we do that is you can insert a human interaction anywhere. So if the AI agent has a choice to make, like let's say, for example, it sees a discount over 25%, which a salesperson is not allowed to do, but they did it. Well, we can tell our agent, you can approve up to 35%, or say stop, go tell the sales manager and ask the sales manager what to do. So we can look at everything that's occurring in these complex pipelines and anywhere instrument human in the loop. Ask a human, stop, get someone to form an opinion. They might have to have a meeting to discuss this. It could be something that's a fireable offense, right? Someone gave their cousin a 60% discount, and we caught it in here, and then we'd say, hey, that's a really abnormal discount. We need to notify someone. We also do a lot of quality control. We say, hey, this is abnormal. This is a poor piece of quality legal contract, or this legal contract has some very serious ethical issues. We can step out to a human at any point. And most of our agents, just one last comment, our agents do have personalities, they have voices, they have names. Some of our agents are nameless and faceless, they're just an API, but some of them actually talk to you, and people actually build relationships because they're working with their agent all day long, and the KaiFlow is talking to them, like let's say you're processing 100,000 invoices a week. There are going to be problems it's seeing all the time. This invoice looks fraudulent, this guy isn't an approved vendor, this one we never bought this. And so the human and their KaiFlow, we call them companion, like get to know each other. They're like talking back and forth all day long.
And just to be sure to understand, so is it possible, for instance, I design a kind of flow of process through the agent, and then I realize I'm missing a human interaction in the middle?
Yes.
So I can take it back exactly same and just insert my interaction
Yes.
at this moment? This is
Yes.
the way it works?
So
Okay.
a lot of times someone will say, hey, you know what, there's escapes, a quality gap, a fraud gap, there are gaps in my process. So you go in here and you look at your audit trail. Let me look at my whole process and go, right here is where if these conditions exist, we need to tell a human. Now that's fully deterministic, if then. So we go right in this database and go, if discount greater than 60%, tell these people. And that's not AI. That's like, because AI needs to be given rules, because otherwise it kind of does this. And sometimes, like when it's doing creative writing, we want it to do that. When it's making a business decision, we don't. And that's why we have these kind of rules-based engines and also more creative engines running in parallel. And that's how we've been able to, almost none of our peers are able to get enterprise-grade AI. Enterprise-grade doesn't exist. I mean, if you think about an ERP system, everything is true-false. Works, doesn't work. Approved, not approved. You don't get into an ERP system and say, yeah, this quote is probably an 89% chance this quote is accurate. Like, you can't run a business that way. That's a 97% chance we got the customer's name right. Like, right? So we've had to do a lot of extensions and tweak the concept of a RAG server to get to enterprise grade, that 99+% accuracies. So our customers, a lot of what we're doing, we're like among the first people to ever do it. So, you know, everything I'm telling you is what we know right now, but we're evolving all the time. And what we found is we do have customers that say, I want my own AI server or servers behind my firewall. So for example, our movie customers will never put Star Wars on the internet ever anyway. They never will. They're not allowed to. You cannot put pre-theatrical movies anywhere near the internet. They treat them like they're nuclear secrets because they all get stolen. Like every movie gets stolen and held for ransom. So like when we work with NBC, Universal, Paramount, Disney, so they're just like, we'll only work with servers that are inside our environment. So we offer that. We have a physical RAG server. I'll show you the lineup in a minute. We have other people that say, hey, we're comfortable using Azure and Amazon as long as it's a secure, private, you know, a VPC, a virtual private cloud. So we have a virtual private cloud SaaS model. And then we have a lot of people come to us and say, here's 6,000 images, do this to them. We have a bunch of old films from the 1970s. We want you to sharpen, fix the granularity, but don't change the colors or color correct. They'll give us instructions. We'll process videos, photography, contracts. We had someone doing an ERP project where they had 10,000 old contracts and they couldn't human read them because they're blurry, but the AI could read them. So we read them, inserted all the data into their new ERP and just did a one-time project.
It must be quite difficult to predict the price when you pay as you go, because actually, if you just do generate a PDF, I suspect it will be cheap. But if in the same process after you change all the color in the video, and it will
We
be a
do
lot of
almost everything we do. There's a human equivalent. There's a human way to do it. So we usually do human minus 15%.
okay.
So if you say, look, I'm touching up these images, I'm paying a human $75 an hour. It takes $2 per image, so it's $1.50. I go, I'll charge you 85% of that, and I'll do it faster and more consistent. We win every time.
Okay.
So we're usually human minus 15%.
But it's still expensive.
What?
It's still expensive.
It's a lot cheaper and a lot faster.
15%.
50% is a good discount. If that's not enough, we could do more, but usually,
Okay, that's margin.
Especially
But
if you talk about
if I go 10,000, so look at this project we had. They go, okay, we have 10,000 contracts. It takes us, I think they said, 4 to 6 hours per contract. So it was 2 humans working full time for 600 days.
That's 2 years.
Right. And we said, we'll do it in 2 days
Yeah.
and do it 15%
I mean,
cheaper.
if you
They're
have to
just
pay
like,
if you have to pay the money and get the work done,
yeah.
and AI is doing it faster, and you're doing it cheaper, well, then it's a no-brainer.
And yeah, if speed matters, if speed doesn't matter, it can be different things. But usually if we get the speed and the consistency with all the auditability, which you often don't have with human hourly work, and you don't have all the mistakes that happen, you know, people doing stuff by hand, they make mistakes. So for example, we have a customer who generates furniture photographs. So a human has to paint the shadows. Now, shadow is science. The angle of the sun, exactly, those shadows can be calculated to the pixel by science. The humans are painting them. They're not accurate. They're not scientifically accurate. So we do them drastically faster, and they're scientifically perfect. We can see where the light is on the ceiling, and we can calculate exactly what would the sun, like in a room like this, we'll calculate the sun coming in through the windows, from this light, from that light, from every one of these lights, and there's actually 7 or 8 shadows around this corner. Mm-hmm. And a human, to paint that is really hard. The AI does it quite easily. Now we still need the humans. The humans still have to review these photographs and say, well, sometimes the AI does make a mistake. Sometimes, oh, it's a little too dark. So they still review it, but what they're doing is they're touching up the photographs instead of building them ground up. And they go, you know what, I spend 15 or 20 minutes doing touch-up instead of 7 hours painting all the shadows. So usually our AI is human assisted. It doesn't run autonomously. That's another thing we sit with customers. There's no push button AI. Press the button and it, magic. It does a very large amount of the work, but a human still usually has to review, oversee it, check it. So these are our lineup of on-premise servers, just kind of small, medium, large, extra large t-shirts. You can double them up and cluster them, so you can build clusters of them and scale out. And you can see they're not enormous, right? We start with 20 terabyte SSD, 512 gigs and an RTX 6000 cheap. And now you'll see press releases from us, but we just partnered with Furiosa as well. So we support NVIDIA and Furiosa chips, which are about half the price of NVIDIA, but they're half the power. So some of these servers, there just isn't power for these NVIDIA chips. And when you go to Furiosa, you cut the power in half, so you can pack more in a rack. Let's just get into the most important part of what we talk about is this is what we really do. So we have catalogs. You may have seen them. They're on our website. You can download them. But we have a catalog of agents. So for example, we have an agent that processes inbound documents, right? Purchase orders and invoices, really. Sometimes contracts or order forms. So we can read them. We don't care if they come in PDF, Word, scans. We don't care if they're poorly readable. But we read them and we immediately start tearing it apart. Address, customer name, amounts, products, wet signatures, and we rip it all out, and then we can begin to automate what we do with it. We found an address, a shipping address. Okay, is it a valid address? Found a customer name. Is the customer in good standing? Do they have credit? Does the customer have enough credit to buy this much? Is it a customer we've never heard of? It's not in our database. Could it be fraudulent order or a fraudulent invoice? Right, so that is all built in, and what we do is we stitch this into their core ERP systems and we go on the quote to cash pipeline. Similarly, we generate outbound documents, quotes, proposals, orders. So a lot of our customers generate very complex proposals with pricing and installation services, customization services. We generate those kinds of quotations. We also do a lot of very complex configs. So let's say someone's configuring a router. Well, we will have our AI read the entire blueprints, instructions, all the technical manufacturing data for that router, and it will know how to configure itself. It'll know how much power it needs, how many slots it has, how much memory it can handle. So you can go and say, generate me a router quote. I want it to have 24 ports. I want it to have 2 power supplies. I need it to be no more than 2U rack, 2U rack depth, full depth of 1 meter or less. It needs dual everything, and literally it'll just generate you the quotation. Whether that's a tractor, an 18-wheeler, a diesel engine. So we do a lot of CPQ systems that we train off of the technical documents. That also ends up being a question and answer system for customers. How many ports on that router? How much power does that router consume? Does that router have redundant power supplies? You can then start talking to the manuals. Now it has to be curated because version 1.1.1.7 and version 1.2 and version 1.2.3, if they don't have those clearly delineated, it gets confused. And if you ever ask the internet, you get these confused, when you say, does this product support this? You get a crappy answer because it hallucinates. It doesn't, it's getting some versions do and some versions don't. So what we have to do with these customers, with their products, is get everything, like if you haven't striped your documentation and every wiki posting And every customer support has to be striped by what versions are supported, or else the AI gets confused. And that's the data cleaning. We sit with customers and say, what maturity are you at? Oh, we're really mature. Oh, do you have every single piece of product data tagged by what exact versions are supported? No. Well, then you're not ready for AI. We'll help you. We'll give you all the technology and all the buckets, but someone's going to have to put everything into these product buckets, and then these systems come up and run. Handling duplicates, cleaning data. So what we do is, from this point forward, any duplicate data, unreconciled data, conflicting data, the AI is going to start pointing that out and saying, hey, don't let this into your walled garden because it didn't clean. Human in the loop. I got 2 invoices with the same number. I've got 2 customers with the same name. Get a human to resolve this before we dirty up your data. Our agent catalogs are big, so I'm going to go fast, but just to give you a sense, we can have conversational agents to any data source, data warehouses, Salesforce.com. Where do I get the most returns? Who are my top sales guys? What are the reasons this office is underperforming the other offices? And it begins to build all those semantic queries. A semantic search across, so we can correlate multiple data silos, and also help people onboard to companies, because we can ingest all of HR's documents, policies, and procedures, so people can ask, what days do I have off this year? And we start to build all this for a company. They start saying, well, you started with purchase orders, but then you consumed all the data about my products, so you can do product Q&A. You consumed all my HR documents, so employee Q&A, all private, not shared with anyone completely. And then they can decide who gets to ask what questions, full access control, and then really start paving the way for them to start ultimately where we want to go, is they start training off their data, start building their own models, proprietary to Xerox, proprietary to their company, where they start to differentiate from their competition, not just using AI to automate, but using AI to start training and going against their competition. But that's like the most advanced maturity level. We generate reports, ad hoc queries. I mean, the agent catalogs are long. These are like Salesforce.com or CRM systems, so we can look at forecasting. So if the humans gave a forecast, we can go and say, does the data support this forecast historically, or is there a problem? Pipeline, do you have a pipeline big enough historically to say you're going to meet your number this quarter, or in your region, or in your territory, or for this product? White space, where is something you should be selling that you're not? The data says you should be selling much more of these and you're not. Usually that's with companion products. So for example, if you're selling mattresses, you should sell a box spring with it every time. And if you're selling a mattress and a box spring, you should sell sheets and pillows and combine that. And it'll look for, why is this store only selling mattresses and this other store is selling bedding with it? Yeah. So
I was thinking with these revenue optimization helibots, it's like that's checking whether the humans are hallucinating. The AI is because humans can hallucinate too,
yes.
right?
So we have a thing that does that, and it actually is this pipeline health inspection.
Yeah.
So it does one of 2 things. It'll look at an account and say, how can this account be in your forecast? You don't have the customer's name, you don't have who the buyer is, and you haven't asked if they have budget. And that means one of 2 things. What I just said is true, or the sales guy never typed it in.
Yeah, or it's fraud.
Correct. So what we do is say, hey, look, this is perfect human in the loop. We don't know if this is a bogus entry or not. So either your data's not clean, type in the data, and we're happy for it to stay part of the forecast. But if you really don't have the decision maker's name and you haven't validated that there is budget, take it out. But one of the 2, and that's human in the loop. Like, some human better do something about this, but this doesn't look right. And you hope that it's just Like for me, I'm the laziest CRM. I never type in anything in a CRM, and
But this is
I'm always in
also
trouble.
what technology is meant to do. Solve these sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we see it all the time, but it's really where it kind of even points the finger back, as you said. It's kind of checking whether humans are hallucinating. But I mean, we see it all the time where it points back to the process, and it's just where they're not following the process right in terms of like rating that opportunity as whatever.
A similar one in that list is the renewals. If you're going to renew a customer, and you can look at the support history, and they're clearly very unhappy, they've had a lot of problems, don't ask them to renew right now. If they're in the middle of a big bug or a big problem or an outage, or they've clearly have a history of being unhappy. So it does a lot of those things like, hey, before you ask for the big 3-year renewal, you better fix this problem. It's basic hygiene, but it's harder than it looks.
And I'm in the frame of the video, but you were just mentioning process. So, I mean, there's a company called Celonis whose entire reason for being is process intelligence. So, I mean, but are you effectively doing some process intelligence as well to help companies figure out what their processes are and then improve them through the use of the AI systems as part of the wide-ranging set of things that you do?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, part of that, Jamie mentioned the workshops and talking about, the MITRE framework in terms of like their processes, their governance, like what kind of documentation they even have available.
Right.
But oftentimes we're sitting down with them because they haven't prioritized. They're not sure. They have maybe a primordial soup of requirements, and it's just like picking out, what are the low-hanging fruit? Where are they in the framework? Because at some point you don't want to go for like the triple backflips or the really difficult use cases. Like what are some simple things at your level that you can just start to find value? And of course it's helping them identify those use cases and of course prioritize.
Well, I mean, we don't have AI that goes and studies your process and gives you a feedback on is it good or not good. But one thing I know we have done is when we document what the humans are doing and we lay it all out, we start to realize that a lot of it can be collapsed or a lot of it is redundant or doesn't need to be done. And so when we go and say we're about to teach the AI how to do it, just the process of automation tends to collapse a lot of these processes. But I don't believe we have like a process analyzer.
Yeah, not out there.
We haven't.
No robots.
Maybe we need one. I don't know. We're building them
We
all
already
the
have
time.
too many.
But, in the interest of time, I'll glaze through this, but in life sciences, we do a lot of work there. It's regulatory light. As a new company, we're not HIPAA and all that, but we do help people do clinical trials. So determining the population you should be using for a trial. You don't want a lot of people of the same age, the same geography. You need a certain dispersed population. Also, you can't do a trial if someone else has already done this trial on humans. Trials on humans are dangerous. So you have to do a lot of literature mining to prove that your trial actually needs to be done. It hasn't been done before. So we do that kind of mining all the way down to getting into, all the ethics tracking, predictive analytics. We work with metadata. Probably the biggest clinical trial software company in a lot of these areas. But we go all the way into genomics, ontology. We talk about DICOM imagery, so we do a lot of medical imagery work. Because of our movie making background, you're going to see we do a lot in movies, we do a lot with images. And the difference between a movie image and an image of a human cells are actually, there is no difference. You're just asking the prompt different things. Like, we sharpen movies that are, if you ever watch sports on a brand new TV from the 80s and 90s don't seem that long ago, but when you see a video from the 80s of a Formula One race, it looks like just garbage, especially if you have a new TV, because it shows you in perfect high fidelity how shitty that content was. So, and that's the same if you have blood samples from the 90s. So we do sharpening of movies. So we can take a Formula One or a FIFA World Cup from the 90s and make it look like it was shot yesterday. So we have technology that up-reses, sharpens, and then there's color bleeding. We tighten it up, stop all the color bleeding. We do the same thing with a blood pathology sample, cancer samples. So we can take old medical data and sharpen it so it can be used for modern studies. And it's the same tech, different use cases.
I was just going to say, in many cases, we use the same similar models where like the same convolutional networks or neural networks are the same ones that we use in movie making to cell, looking at cells and stuff. And, he was mentioning some of the stains we use on the cellular side. So when we're looking at blood pathology, many of the blood samples are stained with, they call it H&E, hematoxylin and eosin, which is like a kind of a stain that gives you really the contrast between like good cells and then anything that's not necessarily, the type of or cells that you're looking for. So it just colors it right. And of course, some of the normalization we do up front before even counting cells or doing something is like, we look at the stain types, we run a lot of algorithms across that stain type, and then we figure out, here's all the good regions that there's cells, so now we can start counting it. Or here's all these other regions where you don't want to waste AI's time because it's, they call them supporting structures, but just other kinds of cellular pieces or, say material that is, irrelevant to the count. So
is the catalog like a marketplace? When someone develops something, can he publish to a marketplace in order for the other to use it? And
we haven't achieved that, but that's clearly where we'd like to go.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea would be you could, if you have a Sprague server, you can think of it like Docker, containers down with agents. People can contribute agents. We can have an agent marketplace. Some of our agents, the catalog's enormous, right? And our company's less than a year old, so we've licensed some of these agents from others, some we've borrowed. So there is kind of a marketplace underneath this, but yes, that's where we want to go.
Yeah, in order to avoid to reinvent the wheel for the next customer, let's say the version 0 for the next customer could be the version 28 from the previous one, because he leverage the...
Oh, that's all this. I mean, as I look at these, I'm like, oh, we did this for NBC, we did this, I know, in the beginning, we didn't have a catalog. So we did work, we built our catalog. Now our catalog is so one of the things we do in a workshop is we want them to start with agents that we already have, low risk, ready to go. But as we go up the maturity, they have ambitions to do agents that we want to. So we'll go to them and say, you know what, we'll help you develop this agent at a very low cost because we want the intellectual property from it, and what they get from it is we'll maintain it for them. Some of our customers are like, no, we want this agent, and we may say, can we jointly license it? But yes, we're very jealous about the ownership of the agents. M&E, they similarly build in complexity, right? Very simple to put subtitles down. That's been available in movies for years, but we do some very special things. You'll probably notice if you ever watch an episode of The Sopranos, a lot of words in there are not in the dictionary. And their names are, they use slang names, they use a lot of four-letter words. Right. And so we have a thing that allows you to spell sports players' names right, which a lot of AI gets wrong. Non-dictionary words, sounds, expressions in multiple languages. But then we take that and we generate subtitles. We can translate those subtitles into, I think right now we support about 18 languages. And then I can dub your name for about your voice for about 5 seconds. And then I can have you speaking Japanese in your voice with your intonation, or Tom Cruise or anyone we want over it. So we do dubbing. A lot of people give us this work. This is kind of the dub my movie and give me a bill. Like, I don't need a RAG server, I don't need all your environment, just go do this work for me. So multilingual translation, also of end credits. We look at all the actors' contracts. Their contracts say exactly how their name is to appear in the end credits. how long, what size font, can they share the screen with someone else, not? Is Gwen Paltrow's name has to be by itself, and how big? We actually look at all the contracts and then do quality assurance for the end credits for the biggest studios in the world right now.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Just pass it.
You're on it, man.
On all those scenarios, actually, you never re-entrain the LLM?
Some of them, like subtitling, we will give it, for example, if we're doing baseball, we'll load the roster of all the names in Major League Baseball. And if we go to older seasons, we load all the names so it spells them right. That would be the fine tuning, but nothing we've shown requires training.
Okay.
Training, this is all fine tuning.
Okay.
And in many cases, the models are different too. So like a lot of these models are more for like audio, video.
These aren't LLMs.
Right, they're not necessarily
It's like Whisper.
Yeah.
Right, we'd use non-LLM because there's no language in most of this, right? When we start getting into like special effects, you know, like we do a lot of special effects. Like it's a lot cheaper to have us generate your car crash than to go rent the street and bring 18-wheelers and lunch and stars and do a car crash in the street.
And stunt doubles.
Yeah, we just do it in AI, visual effects, and then concepts. Like a lot of people who write a pilot. Pilot's expensive to do. If you have a movie and you have a script, we can take the script and generate the movie as a prototype. So you can show people scenes, like here's a critical scene, and you could say, okay, here's what it would be if Keanu Reeves is in it. Here's what it would be if Tom Cruise is in it. And you just have Tom Cruise doing the lines, Keanu Reeves doing the lines, and you generate it differently. Like, oh, we can generate it with a blonde actor. We can generate it with a different looks of actors, different voices, different sizes, as they begin to get an idea of how they want to make the movie, ultimately when they go out and sell the idea to a studio.
Exactly, but let's say it's an animation movie.
Yeah.
So you want to draw the cartoons with the style of one
Yes.
cartoonist.
It's
so
very hard, yeah.
to do that, you have to train the model, no?
We do. What we need is, we've done a lot of work in animation. It's extremely hard. It's extremely painstaking, and I would say our results have not been great. You can generate about 4 or 5 seconds at a time, and you almost always need an artist to create the starting image and the ending image, and it can generate maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and you go like 4 or 5 seconds at a time. It's difficult, and if someone has it a way they want it to look exactly a certain way, the AI gets very frustrating. It never looks exactly the way the artist wants it, so it's been very hard.
That's just a matter of time. I mean, we had on OpenAI the Studio Ghibli look and feel of these little memes. I mean, they weren't animations, but it's just a technological problem. I'm sure they'll solve it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we do some interesting work where some of our artists, Helikai artists, will kind of work on these specialized prompts. But
Right.
back to your point, we're almost modeling characters and giving them just all kinds of like basically attributes, characteristics, and then we put them into a model and it generates things.
So we
around
should be,
them.
I mean, not all of our stuff's successful. So we had a group come to us with cartoon
Certain
comic
types.
books.
Yeah.
Very expensive comic books, super high-end comic books that they had illustrators spend hundreds of thousands of dollars generating this look. And they said, okay, we want to turn our comic book into short movies that we're going to put on YouTube and whatnot, people pay for. And they were doing it with artists by hand. And they said, well, you should be able to generate it. And we tried, and the illustrations were so like dark, and like the AI had to make choices, and like they hated all the choices that AI was making. It was making their characters look too clean or polished, and they didn't like, and it was gritty, and like our stuff came out so candy clean. They hated it. So it's like not. I mean,
And it came
that's
down
why
to
I think this world
artistic
is
style,
hard.
right? And
They just have low budget,
the creator,
high.
yeah.
Like how I process an invoice, no one cares. Like my artistic, like I would say this is the sexiest part of our catalog. It's also the hardest for us to deliver at movie quality.
Say break. It's already 12:12. At what
Okay.
time do you book the
12. We better go.
So you
Sounds
want
good.
to-
Some final.
Yeah, you want to do a very rapid demo or something?
We can do that.
Yeah. I can call these guys and say we're going to be there at 12:30.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've got to leave at like 1:30. We're all afternoon at NVIDIA.
Yeah.
They're
So
kind
we
of.
have to.
We should probably stop then.
We can go. We can do. I mean, demos. You're just gonna. I don't know.
Actually, I have a good.
The problem with
I
AI,
have-
it's a lot of things could
no,
be
we did a big.
utopia or not realistic.
Well, yeah. Well,
We did a big promotion at the end of December, and a lot of the agents Jamie talked about, we actually like filmed it. I mean, like we have demos, so they're about 1 to 2 minutes, but it's like
Share it with us.
our, it's all.
yeah. But you can show some really quick.
Got it. Okay. And so you guys will notice. I mean, we've modeled this very similar to any of like the public. So if you're used to using, OpenAI, anything else, right? Everyone's kind of coming to a similar user interface.
It's the search box.
Yeah, exactly, right. So we're no different. So you'll notice this is very similar, right, to basically like an OpenAI style. So here you'll see, all your past chat history. Chats can be temporary, kind of similarly. So if you kind of click this box up here, it makes it so that you can just ask questions, do other things, but it won't necessarily litter your history or memory. Where it is memory, you can do things like search your messages if you were looking for some certain information or something in the past. You have the ability to bookmark different chats, things like that, right? But Jamie was talking about all the different not getting vendor lock-in to your LLM. And so like, for instance, you have the ability to race several LLMs against each other. So in this case, we can choose like a GPT-4 LLM. And I'm gonna choose another on-premise one that we have. So, but in this case, like you're gonna see, I have 2 models selected, and I'm just gonna say like, be concise. What are, 10 items to a picnic, right? I mean, I'm just asking a simple question, but you'll kind of see it run actually 2 different ones, right? But, and this is where, as you're asking prompts or other types of things, you can talk to an LLM just as you would, on the open internet. But these are, behind the firewall, on your premise type of thing, right? We can also call out to public APIs, right? So actually, in this case, the OpenAI is running in Azure, and part of that is just the cost reason. I mean, for us to pin a GPU, it's pretty expensive. So, we'll just kind of query endpoints when we need to. But this is a great example where just people can see the different LLMs and how they perform. And in our world, there's not only LLMs, but there's the concept of agents that Jamie was mentioning. And so, like in this case, we can talk to various agents. And so in this case, like Quincy is an example FAQ agent that in his training set has a bunch of like basically FAQ knowledge base kind of documents, other types of things, and he's been trained with that for like that function. So, and we can ask any agent introspect, right? So, what do you do? And he'll usually come out. So in this case, it's a made up, upscale retail furnishings is a, luxury retailer specializing in basically all, home furnishing type of thing, right? So, but just gives you an idea of like what we're capable of, when we suck in somebody's documents. And then of course you can ask things like, what are the policies you cover? And quickly he'll tell you, and of course these are in a database, things like that. And so you can also ask things like, what rush shipping policies are there? and I can spell policies wrong, but it should pick it up. This is where an LLM really kind of helps, right? So for instance, there are some tabular data for where we have different item totals and then how much it would cost for rush shipping, something like that, right? So it just gives you an idea of like this is kind of the classic RAG pattern. At the same time, we can do, Jamie mentioned like talking to your data, and so we have, actually I'm going to do a new chat, but we have Nick here, and he's a product sales kind of analyzer, if you will. So, and what Nick does is he's not going to necessarily, he's not pulling over vector database, but he's actually making calls out to real data sources. And as Jamie mentioned, there's times when you want to be very creative, right? And you can kind of let it flow against an LLM or a vector database, but there's also many times where you want it to be very deterministic, right? So when you run a SQL query, you know that in a database you get that exact same answer back every single time, right? It's very deterministic. So similar to that, there's, we have Nick. And so same thing, and by the way, I can talk to my data. Hopefully your microphone's on, Jamie, but we can say something like, hey Nick, what do you cover? Right? So Nick will come back and say, hey, I'm your retail or analytics assistant, right? We cover top or bottom salespeople, best-selling products, right? So you can say something like, give me the best-selling products last quarter.
It goes to the open internet and figures out their quarters.
And we have some debug here. So this is kind of part of Kai Flow, so we happen to have it turned on, but just so you can see, it actually runs a kind of a more structured query, right? Which we want in this case. But it came back and says, for an interesting quarter, and by the way, we've had some customers that have come to us with not just standard, calendar quarter kind of fiscal years, but even shifted, and then even day shifted. So in this case, we actually have a customer that's, they start on weird dates and then they end on weird dates, right?
LLM can go to the 10Ks and 10Qs, figure out their fiscal quarters, and then our queries then work in those date ranges.
Yeah. And so in this case, right, and then, I don't know, something like report on 15 results. And again, Nick has the, so you notice I don't have to repeat the query or anything like that, right? He just kind of picks that up, right? What was the margin 2 quarters ago? Right, so it'll kind of break it down by beauty, home, apparel, electronics, things like that. So again, just a way to talk to your data. And as I said, that was a use case that was brought to us and pretty important for, kind of a C-level executive, but, how do I start to talk to my data, make sense out of it, right? Give me the ability to do that. So we have some capabilities around that. Jamie mentioned, and I'll kind of cut it short, but Allegra was our liability finder. Let me just start a new chat. Right, so it's faster to talk than that. Hey Allegra, what do you do? I scan documents like contracts or customer. Oh, I don't have a contract on you. Anyway, what we can do though is upload a contract. I'm on Jamie's computer, but typically what we would do is, you basically upload a construction contract. And again, it's more in not the business to consumer, but business to business, right? So it's a construction company building a building for, say, somebody else, right? And that contract goes in, of course, Allegra will search break down the document, right? Kind of parse it, runs through our pipeline, if you guys remember, but parses it, embeds it, chunks it, and then takes that and actually reports out on the liability, right? So anyway, just some examples of what we do.
So,
but yeah,
please
right.
give us a closing statement.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Look, I mean, we're pathfinding our way through AI. We're doing it with the biggest companies in the world. Our first customers are almost all Fortune 100, Fortune 200 companies. I think we're one of the first companies that's really down in, these enormous companies, quote to cash pipelines with AI, and, just we'll keep an open dialogue with you guys. We're learning a lot. Some of our stuff's working, some isn't. We're pathfinding, but I've never been part of a organization that's grown at this speed. Like, we are like fully subscribed through 26. I've never seen anything grow this fast, so it's a little more stressful than we
AI
planned for.
enhancement
But
is working. AI,
I mean,
productivity boosting.
I mean, it seems
For
to
sure.
be.
Yeah.
It's very popular. I'll tell you that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.